You know that really tough teaching challenge you've been wrestling with? What if the solution isn't in some textbook, but it's actually sitting right there with you in the staff room? Well, today we're going to dive into a super powerful process that unlocks all that wisdom. It's called teacher co-development.
Okay, so if you're a teacher, I bet this sounds familiar. You're in front of the class, something goes wrong, and suddenly you feel like you're on this lonely island, completely on your own, trying to figure it all out, right?
And, especially for those of you working with adults or young adults, the challenges are, well, they're pretty unique and they don't go away. You're constantly juggling, right? From managing a classroom of grown-ups to planning lessons that actually work, and then trying to evaluate everyone fairly. Whew, it is a lot.
But what if you didn't have to be stuck on that island? That's where co-development comes in. Think of it like a bridge. It's a really structured, deliberate way to take that idea of peer support and turn it from just a nice thought into a real, practical, problem-solving machine.
So, what is this thing exactly? Well, at its core, co-development is a structured way for peers to consult with each other. A small group gets together to help one person, we call them the narrator, really unpack and solve a real-world problem they're facing. The key words here are practical, focused, and believe me, it is incredibly effective. Okay, so there are two key roles here that make this whole thing tick. First, you've got the narrator. They're the one with the problem. But here's the thing. Their job isn't to get defensive. It's to be totally open. Then you have the consultants, and they're not there to jump in with quick fixes. Nope. Their job is to listen, be curious, and act like a mirror. It's this clear separation of roles that stops it from just turning into a big old complaint session. But wait. Before anyone even gets in a room together, there's this super important kind of secret step. We'll call it step 0, preparation. The person bringing the problem, the narrator, has to do some homework first. They really think through their challenge. This prep work is absolutely the foundation that makes the whole session focused and efficient from the get-go. Now, the process itself is actually pretty simple. You can think of it in two big parts. This first part, it's all about diagnosis. Before you can fix something, you've got to be sure you're working on the right problem, right? And that's exactly what the first 3 steps are designed to do. So here's how it kicks off. Step 1, the narrator just tells their story. And here's the rule. No interruptions. This is so important. Then, in step 2, the consultants can finally ask questions. But, and this is a big but, they're only asking questions to understand better, not to solve anything yet. Finally, in step 3, the narrator pulls it all together and says, okay, here's what I really need from you all today. So let's make this real. Imagine a teacher. We'll call him Alex. In that first step, he might lean in and say something like, my adult students, man, by the 3rd hour, they just check out. I feel like I've tried everything. That's it. That's his raw, unfiltered story, and that's our starting point. Okay, so now we have the problem on the table crystal clear. This is where the whole group shifts gears. The focus pivots. Now it's time to start building solutions. Let's get into the second half of the process. This is where all that careful listening and questioning starts to turn into real, concrete action. Step 4. This is where the magic really happens. The consultants finally get to share what they're thinking, their analysis, and the narrator, their only job is to sit there and listen. I mean it. No defending, no yeah buts, just soaking it all in. So crucial. Then, in step 5, the narrator takes all that great input and builds their own action plan. And finally, step 6 makes sure that everyone in the room gets to learn from the experience. And that 4th step can be so powerful. If you have a good facilitator, they can take the whole conversation to another level. They might jump in and say something like, hey everyone, let's connect this to what we know about adult engagement theory. What if the root problem isn't Alex's content, but how it's being delivered 2 hours in? See? That one question just transformed the whole discussion from just giving advice into some really deep professional learning. So after soaking up all that amazing analysis, what does our teacher, Alex, do? Well, in step 5, he puts together his own plan, a real tangible plan. Maybe it's something like, okay, I'm going to co-create the next agenda with my students, or I'm going to pop in a quick 5-minute practical exercise every single hour. The point is, these aren't just fuzzy ideas. They are specific, doable steps he can take tomorrow. So Alex has his plan. He's ready to go. Awesome, right? But hold on, the process isn't quite done. This last step is what makes sure this isn't just a victory for Alex, but for everyone in the room. Because the real magic, the lasting impact, comes from the shared learning. And it happens on 3 different levels. So in this final step, the whole group reflects together. They ask, 1, What did the narrator, what did Alex get out of this? 2. What are the rest of us, the consultants, going to try in our own classes now that we've had this conversation? And 3, how did this whole process feel for everyone? This is how you make sure every single person walks out of that room with something valuable. So when you boil it all down, here's the result. Yeah, co-development gives practical solutions to the person with the problem, for sure. But it does so much more. It creates this amazing pool of shared wisdom, and it builds a genuinely stronger, more supportive community for everyone. It completely smashes that feeling of isolation we talked about way back at the beginning. And that leaves us with just one last question for you. Think about it. If you had a group of your colleagues, your peers, sitting there ready to help, totally focused on your success, what's the one challenge you'd solve first?